Public comments, and each speaker will be allowed 2 minutes to address county council.
All right, we have 10 people signed up. The first person is Mark Babel.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mark Beischel. I live at 275 Pelican Flight Drive on Deweese. And this feels a little bit like a fait accompli, but I'm going to go ahead and say these things anyway. First of all, we bought a house in 1998 on Isle of Palms, and over the 20-something years that we owned it, the short-term rentals, the day trippers, and then worse, the Airbnbs at the end, they just made our quality of life significantly, it decreased our quality of life significantly, and I don't want to see that repeated on Deweese. And I feel that short-term rentals will repeat that cycle of making the quality of life. Crime, noise, and crowds were the three things that STRs brought with them. Also, I think the property values will be higher in the long term if we do not have STRs. I think that we have an opportunity to be the last vestige of peace and tranquility on the entire East Coast. It's a very unique property, and I think we'll just become Isle of Palms #2 if we do the short-term rentals instead of being the unique place that we are. And last, I think that if people want to defray some of their operating costs, we have long-term rentals available to them right now, 1 month and over, or owner-to-owner rentals available to them. So I think those two things can defray costs in a fine manner. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Next is Peter Cotton, followed by Mary Howard.
Good evening again. My name is Peter Cotton. Marion and I live at 423 Pelican Flight Drive on Deweese Island. We built 25 years ago, and it's been our primary home for more than 15 years. You have received a letter from us supporting the text amendment from the last 9 presidents of the Deweese Property Association, covering the last 20 years. 6 of us are here this evening, 4 full-time residents. These 9 presidents again ask you to pass the text amendment. We are unanimous in believing that it's important for the future success of our delicate community. It will regularize many essential functions on the island and allow us to better manage other challenges like short-term renting, democracy at work. You've heard from a few owners, and probably a few more tonight, that STR would severely damage the island. I can reassure you that will not happen. All owners cherish this unique island community and will protect it. As you know, 2/3 of owners recently voted to consider a limited STR program. We are ready to start the consultation process needed to craft a consensus for a limited STR program to be put to a referendum for a decision. No doubt our friends here who have spoken so forcefully against STR will be important contributors to that discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mary Howard, Chris John.
Hello, I'm Mary Howard, 2760 Joe Lane on Johns Island. I have a comment on the dropping of the bike pedestrian crossing at Limehouse Bridge. I don't think that's changed. I feel this is short-sighted. It is an opportunity to connect the West Ashley Greenway with Johns Island. Currently, Limehouse is 2 lanes, but appears to be able to be reconfigured to 4 lanes. That was good planning there. Charleston works tirelessly to promote ways to connect different areas in the county for safe pedestrian bike pathways. There was a conflict about the bike pedestrian lane on the Ravenel Bridge years and years and years ago. It was passed, and that thing is used all the time. So I would like us to encourage council to make an motion to put the amendment and reinstate the bike pedestrian bridge over at Limehouse. Thank you.
Chris John, Jeffrey Stallings.
Good evening again. Chris John, 247 Pelican Flight Drive on Dewey's Island. First, I'd like to start by thanking once again Council members Gabrowski and Darby for voting their consciences over the past two times. You know, as Mark said, it feels like a fait accompli, but and has been since day one. You started this process asking for feedback from us. Over 60% of the comments you've gotten back, and more than that in public comments, have been in opposition. Why haven't you listened to them? You've also heard many misstatements in this process, speaking of property values, our home sales in the time period since your ordinance was in place in 2018 as opposed to before would belie that. Home rule, that's not a thing. Even a ridiculous statement that we're just isolationists here. We're actually conservationists, okay? But my biggest frustration for the council, you've not answered a single one of our questions that we've asked, especially why this and why now? Did you collectively wake up on June 18th and decide to abdicate your responsibility to your constituents and to unique Barrier Island by ignoring your own comprehensive plan? Only one answer I can think of, and one of the speakers at the last meeting touched on it. Your lawyers have driven this process from the beginning, not the reasons that you all ran for office. I'll plead with you one last time. At the very least, hold off on a final vote. Allow a truly representative process to work through before this significant and massive change that you're instilling on us. Don't just listen to financial interest. I just plead with you once again. Just give us some time. Thank you.
Jeffrey Stallings, Esther Doyle.
Good evening. I'm Jeffrey Stallings. My wife Sally and I live at 199 Lake Timacow Lane, Dewey's Island. These proposed text amendments first mysteriously appeared following an executive session of the Planning and Zoning Commission held on June 18th of this year. At no time since has Charleston County provided any explanation for these proposed text amendments. That seems a bit illogical. This lack of transparency leads directly to mistrust. After attending these meetings and sitting in these chambers for the last 3 months, I now realize that this is a common thread of your constituents. Dewey's residents on both sides have made comments that these are the results of settling a lawsuit. At no time, once again, has Charleston County denied that. Therefore, it will go down in the history books now that each and every one member of this council is responsible for the seemingly irresponsible and negligent oversight of Dewey's Island. Collectively, you are responsible for permitting and allowing the conditions for the progressive and systematic failure of my community and our unique and fragile ecosystem of Dewey's Island. Thanks to your inaction, one of Charleston County's and South Carolina's most unique, precious, and treasured landmarks will now be lost forever. This is your last opportunity to do the right thing and oppose these proposed text amendments as written and avoid the irreversible destruction of Dewey's Island. Thank you for your time and consideration. Thank you.
Esther Doyle, Jill John.
My name is Esther Doyle. My husband and I have lived at 293 Old House Lane for over 20 years. I want to express my disappointment in this council being bamboozled by those who don't even live on Dewey's and whose values begin and end with the almighty dollar. Obviously, we have developers and rental agents in control. Speaking of our POA board, those past presidents who finally made an appearance last meeting didn't tell the whole truth. First, 2 of them got on the board by default, one of which was there for 2 weeks. The other was voted off the board. The rest of that group are STR supporters and others have left the island. We've had 2 board members that moved away several years ago, so they're not represented here tonight. And yes, we had 2-3 houses being rented that started when the developer was still on island trying to entice buyers. When the developer turned over control to the POA, no one since has ever addressed renting. In addition, you've been challenged with changing our zoning and accepting this so-called amendment, which is actually a complete rewrite of your ordinance. It turns Dewey's delicate ecosystem on its head, and even though these people orchestrating this sign up for our protective in our zone, conservation easement, covenants, and bylaws, when they bought their homes. As I've heard from the mouth of one of these pro-SCR people when he was suggesting a way around a required OCRM permit we needed, better to ask forgiveness than ask permission. Have you heard that before? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Jill John David McIntyre.
Hi, my name's Jill John. I live at 247 Pelican Flight Drive on Deweese. Needless to say, we bought after the zoning disallowed short-term rentals. Now, apparently, it's being changed. I was going to read a letter, which I'm going to submit from an owner who could not be here, but I just wanted to comment. Short-term rentals, a natural resource managed area is allowing short-term rentals. Not only that, every house can rent there. So that means why shouldn't your street, your neighborhood, your subdivision, why not allow full-out short-term rentals? I believe this is the county's chance to set a precedent. Say no. Thank you.
David McIntyre, Alicia Riley.
Good evening, and thank you for your time. It's very important to us on Deweese that Deweese Island POA regains its self-governance. And your text amendment accomplishes that, and thank you for that. All of the islanders, property owners, need to decide how to best handle the short-term rental issues, not just a few. And again, thank you for your efforts in this regard.
Thank you, sir.
Alicia Riley, Wendell Riley.
Good evening. My name is Alicia Riley, and I live at 247 Old House Lane. I believe this is my sixth and most likely my final time in front of you guys. I want to clear up a misunderstanding and correct the record around comments from several owners and past presidents at the last meeting. These comments are now being presented as if they reflect our community's stance in a legitimate survey, but that's not true. These statements were meant to invite feedback, not to serve as an accurate or unbiased measure of opinions on short-term rentals. Unfortunately, this has led to misrepresentation of our views on this important issue. To echo Joni Mitchell's Big Yellow Taxi, I worry we may not recognize what we have until it's too late. A true survey, conducted transparently and fairly, would let us know where our community really stands. Sorry. We owe it to ourselves and to our future generations to carefully assess whether short-term rentals align with our long-term goals of Deweese Island. The song warns, you guys are probably all familiar with it. Don't it always seem to go? You don't know what you've got till it's gone. Let's not risk our island's unique character and environment by making hasty decisions based on an incomplete picture. We need an accurate, unbiased survey that captures everyone's voice, because we can't afford to pave paradise for parking lots and short-term rentals. You all have the ability right now to commit to protecting Deweese Island and its future by grounding your decisions in reliable data. I once again, for my final time, implore this board to defer your decision, push this third and final reading until you have all the information. Thank you.
Wendell Riley.
Good evening. My name is Wendell Riley. I have a second home on Deweese located at 103 Deweese Inlet Drive. Like Dr. Cotton, I'm going to speak on behalf of 8 colleagues who are past presidents of the Deweese Island POA. Some are here tonight. Jim Anderson, Peter Cotton, Barbara Mack, Wendell Riley, David McIntyre, Shelley Spooner, Ann Anderson, who's here with Jim, and Barbara McIntyre, who's here with Dave. And of course, Peter's here. So, according to every island survey conducted since 2018 when the ordinance was put in place, including the most recent survey, a solid majority, usually around 2/3 of the community, has consistently supported short-term renting of homes with reasonable restrictions. Modest short-term activity, STR activity, that is without the use of Airbnb and the like, we believe will enhance our community, promote property values by introducing prospective new homeowners to our beautiful island and our strong conservation ethos. The proposed text amendment are the result of considerable negotiation and difficult compromise in our community. The 56-day limitation is reasonable. It conforms to our conservation easement, and nobody could justify investing in Dewey's based on short-term rental income with that limitation in place. We continue to support self-governance of the island, and we are confident that limited STR can be implemented responsibly, balancing individual property rights with our quality of life and the protection of our natural resources. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. That's it. Thank you. Okay, so we will begin our county council meeting. We start out with a prayer, Mr. Moody, and a pledge from Mr. Tootin.
Let's bow our heads. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this glorious day in Charleston County. We thank you for engaged citizens who are passionate to come and speak their position. Engaged citizenry is just what it's all about, and we need more of it. We thank you for our staff, our so devoted staff that carries out the day-to-day obligations that Charleston County asks them. And we thank you for this council who comes to serve. And we just ask that we do your will. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. The Freedom of Information Act. I felt it.
In compliance with the Freedom of Information Act, notice of meeting was posted and agendas were distributed to news media and persons requesting notification.
Move for approval, item 2.
Second.
Moved and seconded for approval of the minutes. Any questions?
Accommodations to the clerk and her staff.
Thank you, sir.
Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Third reading ordinances, 3A, Natural Resource Management Zoning District, Dewey's Island, third reading.
Do we have a discussion? Is that a yes, sir?
Yes, sir, we will have a discussion.
Do you want me to read it first?
Yes, please.
Yes, sir. An ordinance amending the Charleston County Zoning and Land Development Regulations Ordinance Number 1202 as amended to clarify the uses and development standards for the Natural Resource Management Zoning District at the following document locations: Chapter 4, Base Zoning Districts, Chapter 5, Overlay and Special Purpose Zoning Districts, and Chapter 6, Use Regulations.
All right, who wants to lead off the discussion? Mr. Kabrowski?
I want to thank everybody for coming on both sides of this. I know what a effort it is to take the boat and come here. And this is in my district. And I think one of the unique things about East Cooper and my district in particular, we have some of the most pristine and untouched by man areas in the whole East Coast. We have the Francis Marion National Forest, the Cape Romaine Wildlife Refuge, Bull Island. And I would put Deweese in this, and I know people on both sides, and, we also have unique communities, McClellanville, Owendale, the Isle of Palms, Sullivan's Island, the Old Village, and the northern part of Mount Pleasant. Everybody has a sense of place. And I started out in one way in this, and I have good friends on both sides, especially on the side who want short-term rentals, and I probably have disrupted friendships, but each of us has to vote our conscience on this. And I remember, as I said before, living on Isle of Palms when they had the beach from Reach Inlet to the Windjammer was this wild area, and you had a sense of privacy, and then they decided you couldn't, we had a conservation easement there, you couldn't touch the sea oat, and then they decided, well, not only can you touch the sea oats, but you can tear down the sand dunes, and what you see now is mini hotels from the Windjammer to about Station 3, and it changed everything. And when I ran, I thought I wanted to preserve the unique natural areas of East Cooper. And I think Deweese Island is one of the most unique and special places on the East Coast that I've seen. And it's like living on Bull Island, and it's not just like a town, it has its own special uniqueness, and it was founded with a conservation easement. And I'm of the opinion, if you change a conservation easement, to me, having short-term rentals does seem like a commercial venture on it, and that's why I'm voting against the changes. I respect the people who are here for the short-term rentals. I do believe it's different than a normal town where it's home rule. It was founded not as a town, but as a conservation easement for a natural resources management area, which in my mind, we are making a change from that to something different. And my conscience in generations to come, I don't want to, in my conscience that we change something that is unique in the East Coast, and who knows what'll happen, but I don't want to put that at risk. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kabrowski. Any other comments from anyone?
Well, I'd like to just echo Mr. Grabowski's sentiments. Particularly, there's a refrain that says that all the facts are not yet in, and the survey is not true to what it is, and the community is asking for more time to allow all the facts to come into existence. This is the third reading, and I'm just wondering, is it an imperative that this be voted upon tonight, and what would be the harm until all the facts are in? That would be my question, but as it appears, it may not come into existence.
Any further discussion? Do I hear a motion?
You don't really need a motion. It's just time to call the
Oh,
roll.
I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. Mr. Boykin?
Aye.
Mr. Darby?
Nay.
Mrs. Honeycutt? Mr. Kabrowski?
Nay.
Mr. Middleton?
Aye.
Mr. Moody?
Aye.
Mr. Pryor? Mr. Werman? Mr. Sass?
Aye.
The ordinance passes third reading with 7 ayes and 2 nays.
Thank you. 3B, proposed ZLDR amendments, third reading.
An ordinance amending the Charleston County Zoning and Land Development Regulations Ordinance Number 1202 as amended to reduce parking requirements for passive recreation and implement the removal of density ranges from the Plan Development Zoning District requirements and the Conservation Subdivision Regulations at the following document locations: Chapter 4 Base Zoning Districts, Chapter 8 Subdivisions, and Chapter 9 Development Standards. Mr. Boykin?
Aye.
Mr. Darby?
Nay.
Mrs. Honeycutt? Mr. Kabrowski?
Nay.
Mr. Middleton?
Aye.
Mr. Moody?
Aye.
Mr. Pryor? Mr. Werman?
Aye.
Mr. Sass?
Aye.
The ordinance passes third reading with 7 ayes and 2 nays.
Thank you. Committee recommendations,
Chair,
first
move
reading
to approve
ordinances.
4A through C.
Moved and seconded for 4A through C. Any questions on one of those?
This 4B, a brief discussion.
Okay. Well, let's take them one at a time, I guess.
Okay.
First one, Azalea Water Easement Transfer to the Commissioners of Public Works for the City of Charleston. Request to approve ordinance first reading.
I need y'all to vote. You need to call for a vote. Okay.
Yeah, we do need a
Move to
motion.
approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. 4B, amend the Charleston Colleton Multi-County Industrial
He's got to
Park.
read ordinance.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. An ordinance approving and authorizing the grant of a utility easement to the Commissioners of Public Works of the City of Charleston, South Carolina, on portions of county properties identified as tax map parcel number 41113000004, located at 4350 Azalea Drive, North Charleston, South Carolina.
And forgive me, I
And then
was,
we're on number B.
Pardon me?
That's it for A.
Yeah, that's it for A. Okay, 4B, amend the Charleston Colleton Multi-County
Move for committee
Industrial Park.
recommendation.
Second.
is,
Moved and seconded.
is it the discussion on this?
Yes, we can have a discussion.
Am I, if I have the right one, then let me see. I'm confused with 5B. The multi-park, this is the one with the tax
Yes, sir.
incentives. Well, briefly, we went over this in committee, and I want to say my respect and admiration for Mr. Sykes and the great work he does, and a brilliant person, but it's over $12 million of tax incentives, and some of these, it's the Beer Baron LLC, the Southern Development Corporation, 9517 Realty LLC, DC Industrial Corporation, Stone Mountain Industrial Park, and others. And all the reasons we gave, I said that to give $12 million to me and say we're not going to tax you and give tax holidays to me, it's like, I don't know how. The ability to tax is an awesome responsibility. And to me, it's like Leona Helmsley, the approach that the taxes are for the little people. All the reasons they gave about, well, they can do better things and buy things. All of us who own small businesses, we can do better things if we're giving all those who pay taxes on their homes, all those who pay sales taxes. And there's thousands and thousands of us. I'd rather see tax reductions in our property taxes and what we have to pay when we buy things. All these things would apply to us as individuals. And I just see that they give the big businesses who come here from other places, I mean, all the people that live here, I think, is our first responsibility. And if we reduce what they have to pay, many of us, and we'll hear about what the TIF districts and East Cooper and other places bought our homes and saw all the values rise, and we want to stay where we're living, and it's tough to pay taxes. We can fix things if our taxes were lower, if our sales taxes were lower, we can buy more things. And I think this, I don't know how we can pick and choose who pays taxes. I respect the reasons you gave, but I think that would also apply to everybody who lives in a home, everybody who buys things in a store, and everybody who owns a business. The same arguments could be made to lower their taxes. Thank you. And that's why I would be against it.
Ms. Honeycutt?
Mr. Dykes with a D. Could you please step up to the microphone?
I'm sorry.
I want to make sure I understand, and that the public understands in response to those comments, how these incentives work. These entities that we provide these incentives, what they promise to the county in terms of employment and whatever they're bringing is not here. The investment is not here if we don't offer the incentives. Is that generally the idea?
Yes, ma'am. The whole idea is leverage, and it's the phrase that's found in state statutes, but for. And so, but for the incentives, the investment doesn't happen. So that is the premise of it. And, I appreciate all comments that are made on these. And this is the reason we're here, and this is the reason I'm here, is to respond. We've been as conservative, I think, as we know how to be over the years to bring really good value to the public. And I think that a lot of that was borne out in a study that was done for us a couple of years ago by the Darla Moore School, where we learned that our work together, over some 30 years has really resulted in speaking for 1 in every 4 jobs that's been created in the county. This body has had its hands on, and 1 in every $4 that's occurring in the economy. And that was, I don't know about y'all, but that was
compelling.
A real eye-opener to me when it was revealed. So it tells me that we've been on track through the years. And so, we try to get the best deal possible for the public. We've got clawbacks, on those where we're doing rebates. We enforce those clawbacks vigorously. You know, we request letters from the companies highlighting employment, highlighting payroll every year. And if they run afoul of it, we claw back on them. We get funds repaid. We cut off any more funds. And as a last resort, if we need to come to the legal department, we do that. And the big arm comes down. So, you know, I feel like we've got a real strong track record.
Excellent.
And a lot
Thank
of
you.
integrity.
Mr. Chair, while Mr. Dykes is still there, you know, I still remain the chairperson of the Economic Development Committee here on council, and I do remember years ago being a new novice council person, and Mr. Dykes and his folk would always provide opportunities for council persons to come over, sit down with he and his entire staff. They go over their entire operations, for lack of a better word. And this summer I had the profound opportunity to participate and, you know, be a part of the STEMmersion experience, which is between Charleston, Berkeley, and Dorchester County, the economic development divisions, you know, of each of these counties participate in that, and that's a huge give back even to our children and to those who are in career technical education and trying to inspire young people to be a part of, you know, some of these business and industry specific areas. And so there are a lot of areas that they do give back. When I, again, before redistricting, had Lincolnville as a part of my district, we sat down trying to contemplate so there are educational opportunities even for us through economic development. And you and I, most recently, we went there for the Economic Development Week in order to kick off. And so I just would like to say, just, you know, for the record, that it would probably be to all of our advantage to just sit down with Mr. Dykes, even as it relates to clawbacks. I think when I had some of those type questions earlier in my council career, there's a list of, none of this information is not without having some degree of transparency. And so they are aggressive in those areas, and even as it relates to road improvements or signal, whatever, in those industrial parks, there are things that are provided for the public good that really comes out of this. So sitting down with them would help, you know, in that area.
Mr. Cabral?
Very brief. We're all equal voters in this. None of us are novice or experienced. We're all elected by our constituents to do our job, regardless of which district we're from or who we are. But I would take the position that, you know, but for everybody that goes to the grocery stores, they might have bought something more, but for the extra sales tax, but for the taxes on their home, they wouldn't be foreclosed. They have to pay the tax, and they can't spend the money on taking care of their family. So but for the taxes, what you're saying, I believe that applies to every person that buys something at a store, applies to every person that pays the taxes on their home. And there's thousands. You multiply that by thousands, and you increase the ability of people to buy things and make an economy grow by reducing taxes on individuals or people. That it's not like a government. We have to make we don't know whether we're going to make it from week to week. We have to work hard to make ends meet. And part of what we have to do is pay taxes here, taxes there, reduce our taxes, and we can make better choices. And but for that extra money we have to spend, we can, you know, buy more things. But I have no problems with the work you've done. And in terms of looking at, you're transparent. We've met, we've talked a lot. You've provided very detailed information about who the businesses are, everything I asked. And it was over $12 million that they don't have to pay. But I understand your reasons, and thank you for sharing them. I respect what you do, and I'm sorry about the misspelling of your name.
Not a problem. I answer to most anything.
Yes, sir.
One last comment, if I could, just for background. You know, there's a reason that we target the types of businesses that we do, and it really goes clear back to the very beginning. When Ed Fava hired me all these many years ago, 31 years ago, the first order of business was, what are we going to do with this department? And I did I don't know, 8 or 9 months worth of bumping around, research, interviewing people, to come to the conclusion that what we were heavily equipped to do because of the General Assembly was to affect property taxes for a certain type company that's called for in the state codes. And that's manufacturing, that's software companies, that's life sciences. So the whole premise behind those companies is that they bring big payrolls from out of state. They bring money into your economy that wouldn't otherwise be there. They expand it in that fashion. And then the buying that they do and the respending of those payroll dollars creates a multiplier effect that ripples down through the economy, benefits small business, benefits citizens, and benefits local government in terms of tax receipts and sales taxes. So that's been the premise of the work, and that's why we concentrate so heavily on a real narrow sector, frankly, of businesses.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Dykes. Any further discussion? Okay.
Need to vote on this.
Okay, we need to vote on this. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
So that was one nay?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I got one there.
Okay.
All right. An ordinance to further amend the agreement for development of a joint county industrial park by and between Charleston County, South Carolina, and Colleton County, South Carolina, providing for the development of a jointly owned and operated industrial business park so as to include additional property in Charleston County as part of the joint county industrial park, and to update the status of certain properties in Charleston County with respect to the joint county industrial park.
Thank you. 4C, Charleston Homes Phase 3 change.
Move to approve. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much.
An ordinance authorizing the conveyance of real property located at 1912 Morgan Avenue, totaling approximately .25 acres, parcel identification number 475-1200037, to International Abba Ministries.
Thank you.
Move to approve 5A through E.
Moved and seconded to approve 5A through E.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
May I make one quick comment as to 5B?
Yes,
I just
sir.
want to thank Mr. Dykes for his hard work in securing that grant. It was a significant amount, and thank you, sir.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. That's 5A through E.
Mr. Chair, move to approve, and I don't know if we want to do these one at a time, but I would, offer 6A through C.
Could we do 6A through B and then?
A through B.
Yes, sir. I'll second that.
Move for 6A and B. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All righty, 6C.
6C.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve 6C. Any discussion?
Absolutely.
Go ahead, Mr. Darby.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Firstly, I apologize to Mayor Carswell for attributing a statement to him about welfare for developers. I misunderstood, I misinterpreted, I was in error, I was wrong, and by so do, I apologize, sir. However, as it stands, because I always want to be on the right side of history, and that's why I gear my votes on, that I will vote no on this because there's a criteria that's not implemented within IGA. If one were to take a perspicacious analysis, Reverend, about how we got here, the county did not put us here. Councilman Ware, the city did not put us here. The developers did not put us here. The taxpayers put us here. And this body is in position to deal with the taxpayers. And we are not addressing them in terms of what we can do. The county is making money. The city is making money. The developer is making money. But when it comes down to the taxpayers, the people who made it possible for us to be here,
we are not giving them any type of relief. Because again, exponentially, when this TIF district is over, the prices of property is really going to explode. And we've put nothing for the taxpayers, as in to freeze their taxes or to have the developers to set aside funds so when their taxes do go up in the air, sure enough, that there's a slush fund for which they can get. Let me give you an example, as I may have told this story before. The TIF district in North Charleston, right adjacent to my home. Prior to the TIF, my home was worth $189,000. And within a few years now, and there's a trailer in front of my house, a trailer left of me, a building leaning on the side of me, empty lot in the back, trash, and my house, because of the TIF now, is $764,000. I'm not making that up. Again, my insurance, when I was with $189,000, which was worth, was $1,100. Now, $764,000 is now $4,700 a year. This is going to happen downtown. And when I say this with all veracity. I spoke with a millionaire. He said he can't afford the insurance in his home. We're talking a millionaire. So after these 30 years or so, what's going to happen to them? And if the city of Charleston, please pardon me, if those leaders don't have the clairvoyance to deal with the problem of the taxpayers, then I guess I'm getting old, I'm provincial in my thinking, I'm shallow in my thinking, and I'm cursory in my thinking, because if anything should be done, it should be dealing with the taxpayers and to assist them. So I would ask the mayor, I would ask the council person, please do something in place for the taxpayers. That's all I ask. If they're a part of the agreement, I sign off right now. But again, we are not thinking about the taxpayers, the people who made it possible for us to even be here. So that's why I would vote against it if there's nothing in there for taxpayers.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Werman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to speak on this because I frankly have had a little bit of a change of heart on it. When we started on this path, I'd mentioned, having concerns about putting some guardrails in place. I know that's generally sort of atypical in these types of deals, but some guardrails just to make sure that the benefits that I think we all sort of agree are worthy and sound great, and our great goals of, the public open space, access to the water, affordable housing, the flooding and resilience investments. I was going to push this council to probably get a little more involved than we normally do. This is a unique property, and trying to put some guardrails in on that sort of piece of this. I will tell you, I think I have been convinced that there are certainly plenty of guardrails in place on the city's end. I mean, Councilman Waring and Mayor Cogswell are going to have many, many opportunities to make sure that those public benefits are secured. I think as I've learned more about the nature of the site, I think the nature of the site kind of necessitates some of those benefits to begin with. And then we've got this IGA where we're going to be able to cover a number of the county's expenses, and I think that has been a very positive development. I'll tell you, though, that the biggest reason that I'm supporting this tonight is, as I said, this is a unique opportunity, and this particular opportunity, I think we've got a lot more public buy-in than in previous iterations, and I think we're a lot closer to the edge of making this a reality. And, I do think that whether it be a phased participation or some sort of opt-out, the sort of thing that I was contemplating, I think there's a very real risk that we might wind up with nothing if we do incorporate that in. And so, I think the city is going to be the steward of this project one way or another. I think they are highly motivated for sure to secure all the public benefits and more if possible. And so I think sometimes you got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them. And so I think the best thing we can do is again, be supportive in that process to really take what is currently, I think, a blighted industrial space and make it a real part of the city and a true revitalization. So that's why I'm supporting it tonight. I just wanted to take a little bit of everyone's time to explain that because I had voiced some concerns about it earlier on in the process. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Mr. Moody?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Worm, very nicely done. I agree with almost all your points. I would disagree with my friend Mr. Darby in that I think the taxpayers are being looked out for here. I do. There's drainage work that needs to be done down there. There's a component of affordable housing. There is a financial component that our staff has worked out that will give us capacity at one of our facilities and will also generate a significant amount of ongoing income. But very similar to the work that Mr. Dykes does, but for something like this, we're going to continue to have a blighted, disgusting area down there. No waterfront access, which is coming first, we're being told. So the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow that's going to be there when all of us are gone is what we should be charged with doing in this county. It's making it better long term, and I think this does that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Mr. Pryor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I spoke with Councilman Waring, Councilman Lewis, and the mayor, and shared my concerns. And while we don't have the authority to tax or untax folks in the city of Charleston, they do. While we don't have the authority to do affordable housing in the city of Charleston, they do. And so they know my concerns, and so I'm putting the onus on them when we move this forward to do their due diligence to be good stewards of the taxpayers' money. Now, I too talked to Councilman Warren about maybe freezing taxes for those folks that are in that TIF or a mile away for the extended period of time of this TIF. But if they decide to sell the property, then whoever incur whatever the market rate is on taxes. So those are some of the things that I asked them to look into. They will have to do that. They're elected by the folks in the city of Charleston, and I would hope that y'all take them into consideration.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr.
just to
Darby.
give one example, which I had failed to give, but I did mention to this council some time ago, in terms of the TIF, when it was over with, a relative of mine in her 90s, because of the TIF district, and the good thing I went to visit her, because again, the property value increased and everything, and there was an orange paper on her door that says, tax sale. I panicked. What? Why aren't you paying your taxes? I can't afford it because of the increase. And I'm sorely afraid there's going to be some folk downtown that say, I can't afford it. And they're going to lose out. So that's just my contention in terms of helping people. It doesn't matter, black or white, rich, poor, it doesn't matter. It's just helping the people. And I just tried to be on the side of history, Mr. Moore. That's what it is, sir. So again, and I would just reiterate, and I don't mean to be so talkative, but it would definitely assist if you all would look at what you could do, and particularly those who can't afford, taxes, property taxes now. So that's it. That's all, sir. Thank you.
I'd like to say I think this is a great opportunity for Charleston. We're going to get waterfront access on a property that we never thought we'd see waterfront access on. And there's other components that are going to fit in real well with affordable housing and other things that we need down there, like restaurants and houses and things like that. So, and we know if anybody knows how to watch stuff down there, it's the city. So they'll certainly keep a close eye on it. And I have all the confidence in the world in City Council and Mayor Cogswell and for their staff to get this done right. And I want to thank our staff and our administrator for helping us work out what we've done to participate in this TIF. I think our staff did a great job, and I think our council members did a good job working on it. So I want to thank everybody, and I want to call for the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, one nay. Thank you. All right, public comments. I mean, council comments, excuse me. Mr. Reverend Middleton, would you like to start?
Thank you so much. I was not going to say anything relative to the TIF, but my mind causes me to just walk over to Tanger, which is a very successful TIF. And we just, a year or two ago, or maybe last year, expanded the ability, and now we see, the housing elements that are also being included near the Top Golf, and that area continues to provide not only for the school district, but for the county, and it just provides. And so I'm excited. Personally, I'm from the east side of Charleston. I'm from that area from my birth and growing up as a child and youth in Charleston, and it's just exciting to see what that area is going to be under this TIF. And certainly the county, I've always said, for the 4 years I've been here, has a convening responsibility. It's our responsibility to do big, bold things, and I think this is another big, bold thing. I also wanted to note, because Mr. Moody and I were talking on last week, and I did something that I've never done before in over 50 years. I went and I voted early on Friday. I never did that before. I'm normally one of those individuals that wait until the day, but he told me he was going to vote early, and I was, on the fence, and had about 1 hour, and I got there, shortly just before the office was about to close, but it took me less than 10 minutes, and there were a number of people that were ahead of me, but I mean, they cycled us right on through. So I would just like to give commendations to the Board of Elections, the early voting process. I used to think that, well, what happens to my vote? I was one of those type people, cynical, thinking that somehow if I voted early or sent in an absentee ballot, something would happen nefarious, but they have my vote protected, and I trust it. The process definitely works seamlessly, the same way I would have voted on next Tuesday. Process-wise, it's the same way I voted as it relates to the process on. I stood in line like everybody else, and they got me through, and it was with dignity, honor. The staff was extremely pleasant and personable, and I am grateful just for the opportunity to have early voting in Charleston County.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Moody?
Nothing tonight, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Darby?
Thank you very much, sir. A certain segment of this country has an antipathy or apathy toward the terminology preferential treatment. But all preferential treatment is not bad. Say, for instance, during the 60s, the veterans who fought in Vietnam and other wars, it was preferential treatment by means of the GI Bill, preferential treatment. Even today, individuals who are handicapped, we give them preferential treatment when they have a parking space right next to the store, so they wouldn't have such an arduous task to make it to the store. That's a form of preferential treatment, and it's not bad. And I guess what I'm saying is because I want to defend Mr. Kowalski, because I know he can defend himself. And I think his analysis of asking Mr. Dykes, and of course he can speak for himself, about the paradigm that we have here is that if we're doing this preferential treatment for all these businesses, what are we doing for the poor? I think that's what he is saying indirectly. What are we doing people on the lower end? We're helping these folks here, but the very people who are handicapped and the veterans of poverty, what are we doing for them? And I think that's what I get from him. Perhaps I may be saying it wrong, and I just have to defend him and what he is saying, because I tried to understand. So thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Kowalski.
Well, I thank Mr. Darby for his kind words. It was certainly part of it that I feel anybody who owns a home and has to is retired or has a fixed income has to struggle to pay the taxes, especially in Charleston County, as all of our values go up, and that is across the board. And the same things that we give benefits to big businesses that move here, they're the guys that'll make life easier for them to hire people, do things. Well, again, that applies to people struggling to pay the real estate taxes, and when they go to the grocery stores, if you're poor, you have to make decisions about what to eat and what to buy for your children, how to take care of your parents, your loved ones, and those are all choices that when you pay sales taxes or property taxes, you have less money to do that. And I do agree on the TIF, proud to see that the 25 acres on the waterfront is a good thing. That's 3 times the size of White Point Gardens, but I don't know how having, more fancy condominiums there and big box hotels benefits anybody. I voted for it. We don't have the say to do it, what controls there, but the mayor, I feel, the city is the one who's in control of that. But Mr. Darby made excellent points of, and my feeling is that yes, there will be some, for fair housing there, but the net result is going to raise the property value for everybody else that lives around there. And although you will help those people who are being subsidized, you're going to raise the cost of staying in their homes for everybody else eventually, as we've seen around the county. That was my concern with that. And in terms of the elections, I just, with all the vehemence going on, I'm old enough to remember. I appreciate the early voting. I had a similar experience as Mr. Middleton, and Reverend Middleton went great, but I still remember in 1960 walking with my parents to vote, and on election day, the whole community, you saw them walking to the poll, you saw them go behind the curtain in privacy, and you all got the election results that night. It was like a national thing of the culture, and I remember my mother going to see President Kennedy in 1960 in Allentown at the center of the town. And I remember when President Nixon came to campaign in 1968, she went there with my sister. They had big Kennedy stickers on, and Mrs. Nixon came and hugged my mother and my sister and gave them a rose. You don't see things like that. In 1960, when President Kennedy won, you had President Eisenhower there at his side, and you also had Richard Nixon, who lost. They're sitting there shaking hands and showing unity. So that was, I think, a sign of what we lost now, that is kind of incomprehensible to people now. I think that's something we should reflect on. But thank you. That's it.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Werman.
Nothing tonight, Mr. Chairman. I think I said it all during our discussion.
Mr. Pryor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I started not to say anything, but, to Mr. Kabrowski's point, and Mr. Darby tried to explain it to him, but this council, since I've been here for 20-plus years, have always looked out for the taxpayers. It may not be what it appears to be to you or someone else, but when you talk about maintaining roads, services, EMS, fire, police, if we don't bring these industries in to offset the cost, guess who pays that? The very people who you say can't buy grocery, can't buy this, they're taxpayers. And this cold words down with this stuff going on in the election where people are saying, well, the people can't buy gas, they can't buy food. Well, every time I go in the grocery store, there's a line. Every time I go to the gas pump, there's a line. And so I would hope that, some would say, let's try to do the best for the least, which we have always have. Mr. Darby and I have done that since we've been on council and continue to still do that. But to try to make this body look as if we're not doing anything to help poor people, I just can't sit up here and allow that to happen because it's untrue. Now, as my tenure as chairman, for 9 years, I fought for the poor people. I fought for workers here. Mr. Darby fought right alongside me when folks weren't being paid what they should have been. And so we have always in this county council looked out for the least of these. And so please don't label this council as we don't look out for folks, because Mr. Dykes has a job to do. His job is to recruit industry. Industry pays for different things, and we reach the benefit. I've always said, if I have $1 and I give you 40 cents and I keep 60 cents, you would have never got that 40 cents if I didn't bring the $1 in. So that's how economic development works. It's not like we take it from the poor and give it to the rich. So, I just want people to understand we have fought for poor people, and please don't make it seem as if we don't care about the poor people, because we do, Mr. Kabrowski. We do care about the poor people. Okay, and I've never, said anything, but it seems like the attack comes every week now about folks can't pay for groceries. I look on TV, it seems like it's a talking point to me from a certain party that they're trying to instill in people's mind that things are so bad, we need to move in the other direction. So now, I don't know if you meant it like that, but I'm just here to clarify, this council has always been looking out for our workers, looking out for our taxpayers, and looking out for the well-being of this county. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Pryor. Well said. Mr. Boykin?
Mr. Chair, I just want to, I guess, reflect upon my experience voting and early voting. My church, St. John's Episcopal, is one of the early voting locations on Johns Island. I want to just lay the accolades on the Director of Voter Registration and Elections, Mr. Isaac Kramer, for the exemplary leadership he's done and the work of his staff and the volunteers that have put their time into making these elections run smoothly and efficiently. And I just had a great experience. And also, I think we're shattering records on the turnout. And I think as of at least a day or so ago, maybe still be the case, we were leading the state in voter turnout. And exciting times, and I just say, it's amazing how I got to watch them, come in and set up at the church. It's just, we've got an excellent group of folks over there that take care of that very vital service for us, and they do everything to ensure the sanctity of our constitutional right to vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Honeycutt?
I'm good.
Mr. Chick?
Nothing tonight, sir.
Ms. Ham? No, sir. I'm going to follow it up. I have nothing to say, but thank you all. Good evening.
You want me to go get it?
Yeah, we said it.
I sent that one.
Just